Answering your bookish questions. Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I am going to be answering some of the bookish questions that you left on my community post or on my fun surprise video where I received these balloons from my BFF along with a book. And I said she was congratulating me on reaching 500 subs. And in that video I said I would do a Q&A video to celebrate. So me and my husband filmed a Q&A earlier today. So that video should be up before this one. So I will link it in the description below. And now, so we answered all the kind of the travel, relationship, lifestyle type questions that were left, and then I've left all the book related, booktube, kind of all the bookish ones for this video. So that's what I'm going to answer now. So let's just get into it. And some of you guys were really mean or gave me hard questions, really made me think. But thank you for responding. And before I actually get into the questions, thank you for watching and supporting my channel, and I hope you got some enjoyment out of it and found some great books to read, and you have shared books with me that I have added to my wish list and want to read, and some I have already read and really enjoyed. So I really appreciate you taking the time to watch and comment. Thank you. Okay, first question is, if you could meet an author in person, who would it be? Well, I don't know if there's one author I'd like to meet in person, like one particular author. But I'm also like, it depends how I meet them, because I am a very shy person, and going up and approaching somebody and starting a conversation with somebody freaks me out. Just the idea of it. Now, if it's like a book signing event, for example, and you like line up to the table and so that author's there to sign your book, I could take the book and say, I really enjoyed this book, or I really enjoy your writing, thank you, sign it, walk away. That would be the extent of my conversation with that person, because I would not know how to make a conversation longer. And really, I'd be happy to meet any of my favorite authors. I don't have one in particular, just any of my favorite authors. That would be awesome. So that leads into the next question. Who are your top 5 authors? Okay, top 5. So off the top of my head, the first ones that come to me are Karen Whitmire, Lynn H. Blackburn, Terry Blackstock, Lynette Eason, Irene Hannon. And really, 4 of those 5 all write romantic suspense. Do I have a favorite genre? Yeah, I do. Okay, so the next question is, if you could only keep one book of fiction on your shelves, which one would it be? Only one book? One book? That's really mean. I have all these books, and a lot of them, especially in this section, are my favorites, and I can only keep one, not even one series, but one book. So I've thought about it, and I'm like, okay, I think right now, because my answer might change tomorrow, but right now I'm going to break up a series. That pains me to say, but I'm going to break up a series, and I'm only going to keep In Too Deep by Lynn H. Blackburn. This is book 2 of the Dive Team Investigation series. I would pull it down, but it's kind of behind the balloons and I don't want to knock them. So we'll put a picture here. So this one is, as I said, is book 2 of a series. And it does carry over a little bit, the characters especially carry over from book 1. And we really get to know them in book 1, and then kind of we're following their story in book 2. Other than that, there's no case carryover per se, just the team works together through all the cases. So it pains me to say, but yes, I would break up a series because I could read that one over and over again. I just really enjoyed it. Love the characters. Love the team aspect. Yeah. But let me at least keep the series. Okay, so then the next one was a little bit nicer. Your top 5 books. Okay, I get to choose 5 this time. Still not series though. So, top 5 books. The first book I think of is a Christmas book, and I've read it 3 times. No, I've read it 4 times. Yes, because I read it last year. So I've read it 4 times, and I could read it over and over again at Christmas time. Because it's a Christmas book, I don't want to be reading it in June, July. No, thank you. So that is The Christmas Bargain by Shanna Hatfield. It is a nice, heartwarming story, and I just really enjoy it. And it has one of my favorite romance tropes in it, which is a marriage of convenience. So yeah, I really enjoy that book. So that is book number 1. Book number 2 is No Ocean Too Wide by Carrie Turansky. I love this book. I've read this book twice, and both times I just really enjoyed it. I don't know, there was something about it that just touched my heart. And I don't have it to show you because my mom has it right now. So that's book 2. Book 3. Well, I guess I have to say In Too Deep, right? Because I've already said that. So there's book 3. Book 4, again, I'm going to break up a series, and it's going to be The Harsh Charge by Karen Whitmire. I really, really enjoyed this book. And when you're asking me about my favorite books, immediately I think about books that I read this year. Like, that's my immediate thought. And book number 5. I really want to pick a series. And I'm going to. I'm sorry. If I Run by Terry Blackstock. I absolutely love this series. And I've only read it once, but I really want to read it again. So hopefully maybe next year I can get it to read it again. Because I now own all 3 books. And yeah, I just really love that series. And Terry Blackstock. I mean, yeah. Okay. Have I ever been in a book club, and would you join one? So no, I have never been in a book club. And I really me and my BFF talk books quite a bit and kind of critique them and discuss did you like this, did you like that, or recommend books. So in a way we kind of do a book club because we try to read books around the same time as each other. More so, especially if I have a certain book on my TBR that's on her TBR and I'm going to read it that month, she will try to read it before she watches a video of me talking about it so that I don't spoil the book for her or anything like that, right? And I try my best not to give spoilers, but I'm not the greatest at that sometimes. And so, yeah, so in a way, I think we kind of have our own little book club going, but it's more I've chosen a book and I'm making her read it right now. That doesn't work the other way around so much, because if I am told to read a certain book and it's not already on my TBR or my wish list or something, I'm not very good at reading it. And then I go into it with I'm being forced to read this, I'm not going to enjoy it, I don't know, especially if it's not in my comfort genre. So I don't know if I'd want to join an official book club. But for example, there's the Christian booktubers book club thing where they just they mention what book they're reading for the week or for the month, and then it's oh, well, I could read that one this month, or no, I'm not interested in that one. So yeah. Okay, so then the next question is, what was the first book you reviewed? Wow, I started my Goodreads in 2011, and when I look back at it, most of the early ones do not have reviews written. But then I started my blog in 2017, and I started it January of 2017, and I was very consistent with it for 2017, 2018, going into 2019. I kind of stopped posting. I was like very active around Goodreads, with blog tours, all that kind of stuff. And 2019, I just kind of tapered off a little bit. Then I didn't do anything in 2020 or 2021, nothing. And then 2022, when I started my channel, I started posting the blog again. But I'm not consistent with it. I try to get all my reviews onto the blog, but they're usually like kind of after the fact. Like, I have not added any of my September books, for example, to the blog. I'd rather just talk about it than write. But writing isn't my strong suit. So I think that's why I always try to put a little blurb on Goodreads, but then kind of writing something official for the blog. I don't know why. Like, I could take my Goodreads little, because I mean, a review doesn't have to be full-length novel, right, obviously, or a summary of the book or anything. Like, just, I really enjoyed this book, or I didn't like this book, and this is what I didn't like about it. Like, it has just short, sweet, or good. So I could easily just take my Goodreads reviews and post them on my blog. But doing it, yeah, I need to improve that. So anyways, the first book that I reviewed on my blog was The Whistler by John Grisham, which is kind of ironic in a way, and we'll get to that, kind of why. I'll talk about that. It kind of flows into one of the other questions. So yeah, that was the first book that I officially reviewed on my blog. So then, what is the first book you remember reading or being read to as a child? I don't remember a lot from my young childhood years. I know that my parents read to me a lot, but I couldn't tell you what the book was. We always had, like, I remember especially during my, like, teen years especially, we always had a library in our house, like a study and bookshelves of library. Both my parents are readers. I was a reader. My brother was a reader off and on, and he is now a reader. And so yeah, like, we always had books around. The ones I remember reading as a child were The Babysitter's Club, Nancy Drew, Sweet Valley High. Those are kind of the ones that really stick out in my mind. There's also another series I remember reading and loving, but I have no idea what it was called. All I remember, it was a Christian fiction, and I was a teenager reading it. It was about a teenage girl who was involved in horses and jockeying. And she grew up on a ranch. I want to say grandparents, but it might have been parents, were involved in that business. And they went to the different racetracks and competed. And I have no idea what the series was called, but I remember reading it multiple times and enjoying it. And I wish I had kept those books. But because we moved quite a bit, we had to downsize different things, right? And over the years, you get rid of some stuff, and now looking back, I'm like, I wish, but knowing that, like, you can't move everything all the time. Yeah, so that's really kind of my fond memories are that and Babysitter's Club. I read a ton of Babysitter's Club. And I was just flipping through one of my scrapbooks that my mom did for me of my growing up years, and I have a Babysitter's Club book report in there, and I have a picture sitting at the wave pool at West Edmonton Mall, and I'm sitting on the beach, so like the concrete beach chairs, and reading a Babysitter's Club book with my grandma beside me. Okay, have you always read Christian fiction? No. So, growing up, other than like Babysitter's Club, Nancy Drew, Sweet Valley High, which are not Christian fiction books, but my parents became pastors when I was 10, 9, somewhere, I was young, 8, 9, somewhere along that age. And so they were very aware of what I was reading and very fussy to make sure it was clean of what I was reading. And we always went to the Christian bookstores, and that's like kind of where we stocked up on books. Obviously, they were stocking up on books for preaching and Bible study and things like that. And I'd go off to the fiction section and look, and I remember buying a ton of books there. And so I did read Christian fiction a lot growing up, but not only Christian fiction. And then I got into my teen years, and the secular books that I remember reading are John Grisham books. I collected John Grisham books. Like, I had every single one for years into college, and I still have a lot of those books. But I have not read John Grisham books for quite a while. Like, I think I read one last year, maybe two last year. I've read one this year. But before that, I mean, it'd been probably 10 years, they've just sat on my shelf. You can kind of see them a little bit. And so it's kind of been, especially in the last couple of years, it's kind of like, okay, should I get rid of these books? Because I haven't bought a new one of his books in years. I haven't read any of his older ones. Like, I haven't reread them in years. But because I remember loving them in my like late teens, early 20s, I have very fond memories, and I'm like, I should give them another go and see. So they are on my list to try to decide. So no, I have not only read Christian fiction. I have moved into only reading, like, I will pick up the odd secular book, but not very often, because there's certain, like, I don't want to read language. I don't want to read scenes. So I want to be very cautious about what I'm putting into my brain. And I don't like to be... Language really bothers me in books. Like, I just don't feel like there's any need for it. So, and I don't want that in my head. So I do not. If I was flipping through one book one day with a friend, we were at a book sale, and I was flipping through it and debating, do I want to read this book? And then I came across a word, and I put it down, and I said, nope, not for me. But the premise sounded really interesting, but knowing that was in there, no. So yeah, that is why I read primarily Christian fiction, because I like to keep it clean. Okay. So then, since I've mentioned my mom several times, what are some of her favorite books and series? And then the same question for my BFF. So me and my mom read similar in some ways and not in other ways. We read very similar when it comes to suspense. Like, If I Run, she's really enjoyed. Aftermath by Terry Blackstock, she's really enjoyed. So we read very similar in the suspense way. When it comes to other, she reads a lot of biography or based on true stories, and I'm not really into that a lot. Or historical fiction, she reads, and like there's a couple she's read and she's loaned to me and said, like, I really enjoyed this book, and then I've read it and I'm like, it wasn't for me. Like, so she connects with characters differently than I do, which, I mean, kind of makes sense. There is obviously an age gap there. So kind of the things she's drawn to a little bit more, I am not drawn to. So, yes. But maybe at some point we can do is sit down and find out what some of her favorite books are. I don't know. I don't know if she'd be on camera or not. I'd have to ask her. But we don't live in the same town, so we don't get together a lot. So we'll see. And then for my BFF, I would say we read fairly similar. other than Karen Kingsbury, was one of her favorite authors for years. Like, she kept up with all the Baxter books and stuff like that, and that's just not something that really ever intrigued me or kept me. I just never, I don't know. I've never wanted to pick them up. No particular reason at all. But other than that, we read very similar and have very similar opinions. And again, someday we will do a video together, and I will be sure to ask her what her favorite books are. Someday. But as I mentioned in my Q&A with my husband, we don't live in the same province. So we'd have to fly to visit, or a long drive to get together. So someday. Okay, then, how much time do you devote to reading every day? Well, obviously that changes every single day, because no day is the same, right? So I would say I read probably a good hour, maybe 2, majority of days. At least an hour. I would say on the average day, like on the minimum, I make sure I read at least half an hour before bed. I just always make sure. I might not even pick up a book until 10 o'clock at night, depending. Other days, I will come home from work, I will read for a little bit, and then I'll start making supper. And then after supper, after my husband goes to bed, I will read for a bit before I go to bed. So it really depends. I mean, and then I really enjoy like Sunday afternoons coming home after church and just sitting down and reading for an hour or so. Again, but I enjoy kind of multitasking when I'm reading. So I will have a hockey game on TV, or I'll be listening to it on the radio, because I don't always get all the games that I want to watch on, so I will listen to the game, and I will read at the same time. I will have show jumping on the TV and read at the same time. But I'm not good with like having music playing. I know, that's weird. But I can't listen to a song playing and read. But I can like listen to a sports event and read. I don't know. But yeah, I spend a lot of time reading because I really enjoy it, and it's an escape from, or relaxing from, different things. And I don't feel like a day's complete if I haven't read. And then I do listen to audiobooks now. As of March, I started listening to audiobooks. So I listen to audiobooks when I get ready for work, when I drive to work, and then when I drive home. Sometimes I will listen to them at work while I'm like folding bulletins or something, doing something kind of that doesn't require concentration. Other than that, that's the only times I really listen to an audiobook. So it takes me usually 2 weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks to get through an audiobook, depending, because really my drive to work is 5-minute drive. I pretty much live down like 2 streets, kind of down, or country roads, kind of down, so it's a very quick drive to work, so I don't get a lot. Okay. Are there any genres or tropes that you refuse to read? I do not read science fiction, I don't read fantasy, and I do not read biblical fiction. They're just not my kind of stuff. I'm just not into sci-fi. I'm not in, like, I want real world, I'm not into fantasy. And for biblical fiction, I struggle with the idea of biblical fiction. And I know some do it really well, but I don't want to kind of start reading about a time period around a certain Bible character and then get the Bible story mixed up in my head because now I've got this book story. I can't do it. Just my personal opinion, but I know that some authors do it really well and don't even, like, they don't use Bible characters, just kind of, you know, it's set in Jerusalem around that period of time, for example. But I can't get into it. Just the thought of it, just, no thanks. And in regards to tropes, I would say the trope that I really am not a fan of is enemies to lovers. If you couldn't stand this person, how all of a sudden can you love this person? Like, I don't get it. Or enemies tend to be mean to each other at times, right? And then all of a sudden your feelings change and you love that person. Like, I just don't get it. And another one that I do struggle with, but I do read it, is second chance romances. Because in my mind, you broke up for a reason. And now you want to get back together. Like, now sometimes that reason is like they got assigned overseas somewhere and they were going to be separated for a year, right? Like, there was no way around being together. So that's why I can get behind that a little bit more at times. But other times it's just like, if you broke up because, like, you had a fight or something and you just, like, I struggle with that one. What are your favorite suspense book tropes? And what are your least favorite? This was hard. I'm trying to think some of my favorite suspense books and kind of what tropes do they have in common. I really enjoy reading about law enforcement. Like, I don't know, so like police officers, FBI agents, Navy SEALs, like, I really enjoy reading, but I don't know if they would be considered tropes or the characters that I enjoy in them. I really like when we have, like, strong, independent female characters that aren't relying on men all the time. Now, I like the men heroes. I really do. And it's usually the male characters that I like more than the female characters. But yeah, I don't know if I have, like, a favorite trope or a least favorite trope that I really don't like. I think it's more the second chance, the enemies to lovers, like, I think that kind of all encompasses, even if it's suspense. Oh, do you ever find yourself in a reading slump? And if so, how do you handle it? I don't know if I can say I've really been in a reading slump, because I kind of make myself read at least half an hour every day. I guess it depends if I'm enjoying the book that I'm reading, because then I only read half an hour. Or, like, you know, a chapter, because I have to stop. Like, I can't stop mid-chapter. It has to be chapter breaks. And so I don't know if I guess if I'm forcing myself to read for that period of time or get at least one chapter done, for me, that would be considered a slump. And as soon as I finish that book, I'd be like, okay, it's time to pick up a book that I really enjoy. So that's when I would pick up a favorite to reread. I love rereading books because they become comfort reads to me, and I have good memories of reading it the first time, most likely. So when I'm reading it again, it just brings me. But I'm not so much a mood reader. I like to have a set TBR. And I have had a set TBR for years. Like, I always had a running TBR that, I'm going to read that book next. I'm going to read that book next. And it would always have 6 to 8 books on it. And as soon as I thought of a book that I would add it to the bottom, and they just kept rotating through. Always. And, like, very rare was it that I would pick up a book that wasn't on that list that I'd already created. It would just normally get added to the bottom to get moved up. So I can't really help that well with reading slumps, but I would say if you find yourself in a reading slump, pick up a favorite and revisit a favorite, something you know that you enjoyed. Okay, and then we go to YouTube questions. So what made you start a YouTube channel? Well, as I mentioned, I had a book blog for two and a half years, and then I kind of stopped. And then as I was kind of getting back into it, I was still reading that whole time, like in between. But I was like, I need to share about books I'm reading, because I tend to pick up books that are recommended. So I see a book on Goodreads that a friend is, right? So I'm like, okay, let's recommend books. And as I said, English, I struggle with writing reviews. I always feel like I've given too much away, or not said enough, or haven't intrigued a person enough to pick up the book. And I was watching BookTube, and I'm like that, and I've watched YouTube in general for a number of years, and really, really enjoy watching it. And then I found BookTube, and was watching that. I'm like, this would be perfect. But I have no idea how to edit a video. No idea. And everything I was seeing is everybody uses Mac, like an Apple iMovie and stuff to edit. And I'm a PC girl. I have no idea how to use any Apple products. And so the thought of that, I was like, I don't know. And then I've seen like a couple people mention about how they edit with like a Windows-based program. And I was like, I have no idea. No idea. Over my head. And then my BFF said, well, I'll edit videos for you. And I was like, okay, let's give this a try. So that is how I started, why I started. And Christine edits all my videos for me. And I really appreciate that, because without her, this channel would not exist. Because I still have no idea. I have tried to edit some of the video, like some of the blogs I've done, just to kind of make the file a little bit smaller when I'm sending it to her, and I struggle bad. I feel like I spend so much time just fighting with it. And so yeah, so this channel would not exist without her. So thank you, Christine. And so that is why I started a YouTube channel, because basically I wanted to talk about books, and I was reading and sharing about them anyways through Goodreads, so let's just share about them. And then I found the interaction. I mean, I'd already found some interaction before I actually started, but then like I discovered more interaction, and I love chatting in the comments back and forth and just getting to know. And there's people I feel like I'm friends with, that I know, and that comment on a very regular basis, and I look forward to those comments, and I try to communicate back, and hopefully you feel like you know me as well. And I've really enjoyed that. So that kind of leads into the next question: what is your favorite part about BookTube? And basically my favorite part is the interaction. I just love interacting with you, and that you take the time to comment on videos. Because I watch a lot of my video, like not my videos, but I watch a lot of the YouTube channels that I watch them on my TV. And so I can't always comment. So then I have to open my phone to comment. And so I know that it's an extra step to do that, to comment, rather than just watching and kind of, doing the little thumbs up thing and checking it. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, that is totally my favorite part of BookTube. And then the last question is, what are your favorite types of videos to film? Okay, so before we get into my favorite, I'm going to tell you what my least favorite videos are to film. And that is the wrap-ups. And I know this is a very common thing over a lot of BookTube channels, is filming the wrap-ups are not the favorite part, and they are not my favorite. Because I feel like especially if I didn't like the book, or if I read the book like at the very beginning of the month and now we're at the end of the month, oh, what was it I wanted to say about this book? What? But then, so I share about that book without giving too much away, or not giving enough that it makes you interested in the book. Those are my hardest ones to film. My favorite ones to film are my TBR game. I love filming that and the randomness of it, and picking the TBR, because as I said, I've always had a TBR going. So having that set, and that's definitely my favorite one to film. And as I've mentioned before, I am working on ideas to change my TBR game for next year, and I'm working on it and I have ideas, and I am ready to start filming that now to see if it's going to work, but I'm excited to film it. So yeah, those are definitely my favorite videos to film. So yeah, so that is just a little bit of answering some of your questions. I don't think I missed any. And if I did, I'm sorry. I tried to write them all down. Yeah, I don't think I've missed any. I hope not. So I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope you really enjoyed watching and you've learned a little bit more about me. But if I didn't answer your question, or if more questions come up, leave them in the comments below and I will try to answer them in a future video. Thank you. Bye.